All right, Army Regulation 201, Environmental Quality, Environmental Protection, and Enhancement. Headquarters, Department of Army, Washington, D.C., 13th December 2000, Classified Environmental Protection and Enhancement Administrative Revision dated 13th December 7th, 2007, updated policy regarding the Army Program Guidance Memorandum, corrects typographical errors throughout the publication. Headquarters, Department of Army, Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C., December 13, 2007, Army Regulation 201, effective 27th December 2007, Environmental Quality and Environmental Protection and Enhancement. George W. Casey, Jr., General United States Army Chief of Staff. Joyce E. Morrow, Administrative Assistant Secretary of the Army. History of publication is an administrative revision. The portions effective with administrative revision are listed in summary of change. Summary of the regulation covers the environmental protection enhancement and provides framework for the Army Environmental Management System. Applicability of the regulation addresses environmental responsibility of all the organization of agencies, and specifically regulations apply to the Army, Active Army, Army National Guard, Army National Guard of the United States of Army Reserve, tenants, contractors, releases, performing functions on real property under the jurisdiction of the Department of the Army. For example, Army and Air Force Exchange Services, defensive commissionary agencies, active operations under the purview of the Army, even when the performed installation is off installation. Formerly used defensive sites, formerly used defensive sites or other excess properties managed by the Army are used throughout the regulation. The term Army National Guard includes Army National Guard of the United States. The installation facility of the foreign countries will comply with the requirements of this regulation, with that specifically prescribe overseas requirements. Contact operated government-owned facility with reference to the regulation designated specific citation on applicable provisions. The regulation does not apply to civil works functions that are under jurisdiction of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineering. The term Army Environmental Program and Army Environmental Program must be read in text and context. All Army organizations, regardless of their organizational level of chain of command, have the environmental responsibility as part of the function. The environmental responsibilities must be incorporated into the planning, programming, budgeting, executing respective information. Assistant Chief of Staff, Installation Management, working through the Director of Environmental Programs. See the responsibility paragraph 113 acts. The specific more narrow defined responsibilities are plan and program, budget, executed via assigned accounts. The accounts for source is especially prescribed and focused environmental efforts. Each organization must program funded by the environmental activities of the appropriate account for the proponents. Operating budget not necessary in environmental accounting, but being mindful of the context in which requirements are articulated will help define the scope of the program being addressed and will include inappropriate resource decision and exceptions. Proponent and exemption authority. Proponent of the regulation, Assistant Chief of Staff of the Installation Management. The proponent has the authority to approve exemptions of the waiver to the regulation and consistent with the law and regulations. The proponent may delegate the approval authority and written division chief of the program, proponent agency, or its direct unit in the field or operating agency, the grade of the colonel, civil equipment. Activities may request waiver to the regulation, provide justification, include the full analysis of the expected benefits, must include the formal review of the active senior legal officer. All waiver requests will be endorsed by the commander and senior leader requesting activity forward through the higher commanders to the policy proponent. Refer to the AR200 for the guidance. Army Management Control Process. The regulation contains management and control provisions identified with the key management controls that must be evaluated. Supplementation of the regulation. Establishment of the command of local forms prohibited without prior approval of the Assistant Chief of the Staff. Installation Management, 600 Army Pentagon, Washington, D.C., 203100600. Suggested improvements used are invited with some of the comments and suggested improvements to the Form 228 recommendation. Change the publication blank forms. Through the change of command, the headquarters of the Department of Army, DAI, MED 600 Army at Pentagon, Washington, D.C. 203100600. This publication is available in electronic media and intended for the command level C, D, and E for the Active Army, Army National Guard level, and United States Army Reserve. Unclassified. Contents: Enter Chapter 1 Introduction, General Page, the purpose, reference, explanation, abbreviation of the terms. Section 2, the Secretary of the Army Secretary, Installation Environment and Environment, Assistant Secretary of the Financial Comptroller, Assistant Secretary of the Army Acquisition and Logistic Technology, Chief of Public Affairs, Deputy Chief of Staff, G3, 5, and 7, G4, and G8. Commander, U.S. Army Engineers, Assistant Chief of Staff, Installation Management Commander, Installation Management Command, Chief of Army Reserve, National Guard Bureau Director, Army National Guard, Judge Advocate, General Surgeon General, Army Command, Army Service Component, Direct Report Unit Commanders, Commander, U.S. Army Force Command, U.S. Army Material Command, U.S. Army Training and Document Command, Senior Missions, General Garrison Commanders, Medical Department Activity, Medical Care, Medical Center, Health Support, Support Areas Command and Tenants Commanders, Government-Owned Contract Operated Facilities Unit Commands. Chapter 2, Environmental Policy, Commitment to Environmental Stewardship, Army Environmental Policy Statement, Legal Requirements. Chapter 3, Planning and Implementation, Installation, Strategic Planning, Activities, Products, Services, Important Environmental Aspects, Environmental Objectives and Targets, Operational Controls, Emergency Preparedness, Response and Management Programs. Chapter 4, Environmental Asset Management, Air Resources, Water Resources, Land Resources. Chapter 5, Pest Management, Policy, Legal, Other Requirements, Major Program Goals and Program Requirements. Chapter 6, Cultural Resources, Policy, Legal, Other Requirements, Major Program Goals, Program Requirements. Chapter 7, Pollution Prevention, Policy, Legal, and Other Requirements, Major Program Goals, Program Requirements. Chapter 8, Munitions, Uses on Range, Policy, Legal, Other Requirements, Major Program Goals, Program Requirements. Chapter 9, Hazardous Materials, Chapter 9, Material Management, Hazardous Material, Toxic Substances. Chapter 10, Waste Management, Hazardous Waste, Solid Waste. Chapter 11, Storage Tank Systems, Oil Hazard Substance Spills, Policy, Legal, Other Requirements, Major Program Goals, Program Requirements. Chapter 12, Environmental Cleanup. Chapter 13, Environmental Quality, Environmental Cleanup Policy, Legal, Other Requirements, Major Program Goals, Program Requirements. Chapter 13, Environmental Quality Technology, Environmental Technology, Technical Center, Policy, Legal, Other Requirements, Major Program Goals, Major Requirements. Chapter 14, Operational Noise, Policy, Legal, Other Requirements, Major Program Goals, Program Requirements. Chapter 15, Program Management, Operations, Sources and Resources, Environmental Quality Control, Committee, Environmental Training and Awareness, Competency, Communication, Real Property Acquisition, Lease, Outgrants, Disposal, Transactions, Military Construction, Moral Welfare, Recreation, Construction for Army Installations, National Security, Emergency Exemptions and Waivers, the Army and Environmental Program in foreign countries, Environmental Management System, Documentation Control. Chapter 16, Checking Corrective Action, Environmental Performance and Assessment, Environmental Management System Audits and Monitoring, Measurement, Enemy, Environmental Information Reporting Violations, Nonconformance, Corrective, Preventive Action, Environmental Records. Chapter 17, Environmental Management Review, Environmental Management System Management Reviews. 7.1, Headquarters Department Army Environmental Programs Review. Chapter page 55, Appendix A, References. Appendix B, Installation Management Control Evaluation Checklist. Chapter Table 1, Table List, Noise Limits, Noise Zone, Risk, Noise Complaints, Level of Noise, Property Disposal, Approval Authorities, Documentation Required. Figure List 12.1, Army Environmental Cleanup Program Areas, page 38, Glossary and Index. Chapter 1, Introduction.